With question 110 of the Summa Theologia, we now have entered into the final 10 questions of Prima Pars, and so we are on the home stretch for sure. And we are on the treatise on the conservation and government of creatures. And again, this is the second part of the Summa where St. Thomas Aquinas is going to focus on the angels. And this particular question has 4 articles, and it asks how angels act on bodies. Now, bodies would be our own body, and also it could be the heavenly bodies like the moon and the sun and the stars and things like that. It also could be any body, that on earth as well, like an animal body as well. So the first article says whether the corporeal creature is governed by the angels. Now, this may come as a surprise to you that there is somewhat of a pecking order, I guess you can say, an order of command where the higher are influencing the lower. For example, the angels gave the Old Testament to the prophets, so there's a certain ministerial aspect to it. But this is asking, are the bodies, the lower bodies, governed by the angels? And St. Thomas Aquinas is ultimately going to say, yes, they are. So he says, it is generally found both in human affairs and in natural things that every particular power is governed and ruled by the universal power. As, for example, the bailiff's power is governed by the power of a king. Among the angels, the superior angels who preside over the inferior possess a more universal knowledge. And so, as I've said a number of times, there's always order in St. Thomas Aquinas' mind, beginning with God at the top and then going down through the orders of the angels to the human beings and then to the lower material, creatures that have sensitive and nutritive souls. That's very important to understand. And so there's always order, and this is going to come with governance and also with enlightenment, as we previously learned. Now, it is manifest that the power of any individual body is more particular than the power of any spiritual substance. For every corporeal form is a form individualized by matter and determined to the here and now, whereas immaterial forms are absolute and intelligible. In an intelligible form, he's talking about angels, right? Therefore, as the inferior angels who have the less universal forms are ruled by the superior, so are all corporeal things ruled by the angels. And that would include us, because we are corporeal creatures, body, soul composites. This is not only laid down by the holy doctors, but also by all philosophers who admit the existence of incorporeal substances. Okay, so the answer is a big yes on that one. Article 2 says whether corporeal matter obeys the mere will of an angel. Okay, so when an angel wills something, does it automatically happen? And he's going to go back to the Platonists and also Avicenna, the Muslim philosopher, and kind of rehash what he has taught before. But I think because many of these teachings are kind of complicated, it's good to be reminded of what Plato taught and also what Avicenna taught as well. He says the Platonists asserted that the forms which are in matter are caused by immaterial forms because they said that the material forms are participations of immaterial forms. Remember the shadows and the forms, the realm of forms that Plato taught about. Avicenna followed them in this opinion to some extent, for he said that all forms which are in matter proceed from the concept of the intellect, that corporeal agents only dispose matter for the forms. They seem to have been deceived on this point through supposing a form to be something made per se, so that it would be the effect of a formal principle. Okay, so he's saying that Avicenna and Plato are giving too much, authority, for lack of, or too much power to the form over the matter, and he's going to have a different solution here. But as the philosopher proves, of course, Aristotle, what is made, properly speaking, is the composite. For this, properly speaking, is, as it were, what subsists. Okay, so form and matter come together and create a composite, create a substance, right? And whereas the form is called a being, not as that which is, but as that by which something is, and consequently neither is a form, properly speaking, made, for that is made which is, since to be nothing but the way to existence. Okay, so it's when a thing becomes something when form and matter come together and not separately, right? So that's the very definition. Otherwise, you had primary matter and then a form that was not connected yet to matter, but that's the point he's making. Now it is manifest that what is made is like to the maker, for as much as every agent makes its like. So whatever makes natural things has a likeness to the composite, either because it is a composite itself, as when fire begets fire, or because the whole composite as to both matter and form is within its power, and this belongs to God alone. Therefore, every informing of matter is either immediately from God or from some corporeal agent, but not immediately from an angel. So this is where, in the first article, he says, yes, the angels do have some power over material creatures, but not so much that the creature just blindly obeys the will of the angel. Article 3, whether bodies obey the angels as regard locomotion. Now, I put this picture up there of a man running because what he's going to talk about here is how our body obeys our rational soul. And the soul is spiritual, the soul is incorporeal, and so we see it even within ourselves that when we move physically, it's because of a incorporeal, spiritual soul that's commanding the body to move. So he says, as Dionysius says, divine wisdom has joined the ends of the first to the principles of the second. Hence it is clear that the inferior nature at its highest point is in conjunction with superior nature. Now, corporeal nature is below the spiritual nature. But among all corporeal movements, the most perfect is local motion, as the philosopher proves. The reason of this is that what is moved locally is not as much in potentiality to anything intrinsic, but only to something extrinsic. Okay, so movement is coming from something outside of the body, that is, to place. Therefore, the corporeal nature has a natural aptitude to be moved immediately by the spiritual nature as regards place. Hence also the philosophers asserted that the supreme bodies are moved locally by the spiritual substances, which I think he's talking about the heavenly bodies there. I believe that's what he's saying. Whence we see that the soul moves the body first and chiefly by a local motion. So do bodies obey the angels as regard local motion? To some degree, yes, right? They're going to have, because they're certain spiritual substances, they're going to have some kind of authority in that regard. Article 4, whether angels can work miracles. All right, what is the power and authority of angels to basically turn the natural order upside down, which we know God can do? A miracle, properly so called, is when something is done outside the order of nature. But it is not enough for a miracle if something is done outside the order of any particular nature, for otherwise anyone would perform a miracle by throwing a stone upwards. I think this was an attempt by St. Thomas Aquinas to be funny. Okay, there aren't many places in the Summa where Thomas is cracking jokes, but I think that was meant to be kind of funny, that somebody just throwing a stone upward, because it goes against the nature of the stone to go up, that would be a miracle, right? As such, a thing is outside the order of a stone's nature. So for a miracle is required that it be against the order of the whole created nature. But God alone can do this, because whatever an angel or any other creature does by its own power is according to the order of created nature, and thus it is not a miracle. Hence, God alone can work miracles. All right, so there you go. That is the 4 articles for question 110 of the Summa Theologia, How Angels Act on Bodies. Thanks for journeying through the Summa with me, one question at a time. And St. Thomas Aquinas, pray for us. God bless you.